Our site header should provide the navigation. That's its main purpose. But we'll also have the logo in there. And since we have a shop component, we'll add a link to the cart. Now, the hero section should present or showcase the latest theme or template. So we'll have some big call to action buttons there for live demo and for adding that item to the cart. So let's go ahead and build these two sections. First, we need to set up our workspace. Now, if you're using Sketch, then you're going to have a very easy time doing so. But if you're using a different software, then some of the things that I'm about to show you will not work. So depending on what you'll be using, you may or may not be able to do what I'm doing here exactly. But I'm assuming that you'll be using Sketch. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create an artboard. That is desktop HD 1440 by 1024. Yeah, so that's the first artboard here. And I'm going to make this a lot bigger in height. We're going to need that. And actually the first page will be called index. So this is the home page. Now, we'll be using a custom grid for this. So go to View, go to Canvas, Layout Settings, and the layout we'll be using will be 1260, and it will be a 6-column grid. I'm going to center this. You're going to see the offset is 90 pixels. The gutter width, we'll set it to 90. And the column width will be 135. And the rest of the options should be the same. So I'm going to hit center again, hit OK, and in my case, Control L will show the layout, or in our case, the grid. So we can easily toggle it on and off to see how we align things. All right, so that's done for the grid. Now, the other element that I'm going to be using is the color palette. Now, here, if you bring up colors, you go to Window, or actually View, Hide, or Show Colors. You can create a new palette in here, and that's going to help us maintain a consistent color palette throughout. Now, I'm going to have this off screen so you can see what I'm doing on the canvas. But whenever it's something important here, I'll just bring it up and I'll show you. And yeah, that's about it for the preparation. Now, let's begin with the actual header. And the header should have the logo and the menu. So let's start with a rectangle, and we'll fill it with white. And we'll make it 1440 by 120. We'll align it in the center and on the top. And we'll give it a border color. You can't really see this because it's off screen. It's EC, EC, EC. And with that color selected, it's selected right here. So I'm gonna add it to my palette, and I'm gonna call this border. In addition to that, let's go ahead and add a small shadow. So I'm gonna create a simple shadow, black, 7% opacity. And it's going to be 0 for X, 2 for Y, 4 for blur. So basically just the default shadow. And it looks something like this. Now I chose 120 height because we'll be using a base font size of 20 pixels. So the line height will be 30 pixels, and that will be our baseline. So our baseline is 30 pixels. So we're going to be using multiples of that value to create elements, to space them from each other, and so on. So let's create the actual logo, and for that I have one that's prepared already here. So I'm just gonna put it in the center of the screen on the top, and I'm gonna push it down 30 pixels from the top, 30 from the bottom. And this is 60 pixels in height. Let's rename this to header BG, and let's group these as header. I'll be using uppercase for the main groups and simply normal case for the other elements. Now for the menu, let's start with home. For the color, we're going to use something like 4F, 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 and we'll also create a new entry in our color palette. We'll say text. This will be used for the regular text here. And then for font, we'll be using a font from Typekit. Of course, you can use whatever you want, but I'll be using something called Futura PT. I will be using a font size of 16 actually for the menu, and this will be heavy. We'll also create a new text style called menu item active. All right, now this I'm gonna align in the middle of our header here and align it with the grid. Now, since this is the active menu item, let's go ahead and create a active indicator. For that, grab the line tool and draw a line that's exactly the width of the menu item, which is 47. So something like this, length, we'll say 47, and we'll use the same color as the text, so 4F, 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 and we're just gonna zoom in and we're gonna place it on the border of our header. So that is the first menu item. Let's rename this as active menu indicator, and this we'll rename as menu, and we'll put it inside our header. Now, for the other menu items, we're gonna have the following. Position each at 30 pixels from the menu before it. First of all, no text style. It's gonna be Futura book. The same color, 16 pixels. And here, it's going to say shop. And this will create a new text style called menu item inactive. So now, if we want, we can switch between these really easily. Make this active, make this inactive, or vice versa. So it's going to be very easy for us when we create new pages. Next up, we're going to have a menu item called contact and another one for support. And see how easy it is to align things and distribute them equally with Sketch. Really cool. Support. There we go. Now on the other side, on the right side, we're going to have links for My Account and Cart. And we're going to group those separately because they belong in a different category, right? And also, this allows us to make modifications later on. If we decide to remove the shop altogether, we can just remove that right-hand side and just be left with contact and support. And actually, now that I think about it, the shop actually belongs there as well. So you're going to have shop, My Account, and the cart. So yeah, let's go ahead and move that on the other side and move these back to 30 pixels right there. Let's duplicate one of these and we'll say shop and then create another one that's going to be for My Account and another one that's going to be for cart. Now on the cart, we're going to give more details. Let's say we have a total of like $89 and we're shopping 3 items. Now the cart link should be highlighted in some way, so we're going to use a different color for it, and that color is this F5646D, and we're going to create a new entry in our palette and we're going to call this primary. The color that I just chose colored all of the menu item inactives. So we got to address that. Let's change that back to text. Let's create a no text style here. And then change the color back to primary. And then create a new text style. And this will be called menu item special. Let's align things to our grid here. And then we're actually going to separate the cart link from these 2 links with a vertical separator. So we're going to start with a line tool, create a line that's 30 in length, again sticking with our baseline there. The border color should be EC, EC, EC. And then we'll go into the border options and we'll say -2, gap 2, and we'll leave the others unchecked. And now we have a nice dotted separator that we're gonna put at 30 pixels from the cart link, and again 30 pixels from the others. And of course, make sure it's properly aligned with the background. Now, actually for this border, this color is a bit too light. So instead, I'm going to use the text color, and we're going to bring it down a notch, something like this, B1, 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 and then create a new style called dotted line. All right, so let's see what we got so far. Yeah, we have the logo, we have this menu, and we have the menu on the right side. Everything is aligned and spaced properly, so we can now move on to our hero area. Now, our hero area will contain information about the latest theme or product that we've developed. And it's going to include the title, a small description, and 2 call to action buttons, one for live demo and one for buying that theme. And also we'll be adding a little arrow down, just so the user can click on it and be scrolled down immediately to the next section. So let's start with a title first, and this will be for like a heading 5. We're gonna say our latest theme. Let me just zoom in here. Our latest theme. And this will be the same Futura text, book, but the size will be 20. So we're going to align this to the center again. And for the color, we're actually going to use the same color that we used here. So B1, B1, B1. Okay, we're going to do that. And actually, we're going to create a new entry here, and we're going to call it muted text. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to place this at 120 pixels from the element above, center it, and then underneath, we're going to create a HR, or a horizontal rule. That's very short, actually. So grabbing the rectangle tool, draw a rectangle that's 60 by 5, and we'll give it a border radius of 5. As for borders, we don't need those, so we'll remove them. And for fill, we're going to use the border color, EC, EC, EC. And with this, let's create a new shared style called thick HR. Put it there, 30 pixels from the heading above. And then underneath, we're going to have the main title. Let's call our theme Elevation, and we'll make it Futura, heavy, but the font size will be 80. The color stays the same. We're going to center it, center on the page, and then we're going to place it at about 60 pixels from the HR. Also, we're going to create a new text style here, H1 center. For this as well, H5 center. And then we need some text below this. So create a new text, and we'll say something like this. So our latest corporate theme is a perfect companion, and so on and so forth. Now we'll be aiming for about 60 characters per line, just to ensure that we have good readability for our text. And that means somewhere around 600 pixels for the width of our text here. But let's actually bring up the grid. Okay, let's align this to the grid, and let's resize it so that it's about 3 grid columns here. So resize this again. So get it at 555 pixels. Align this in the center again. And for the text, we're actually going to use another font called Tisa Pro. This is from Typekit. And we'll be using 20 pixels there. And the line height, we'll set it to 30. Move this up until it's 30 pixels from the title above. And then we need to add 2 big buttons here. One for live demo, one for buy now. Now, for the first button, the live demo, we'll create a button secondary, basically. So with the rectangle tool, draw one that's about 90 pixels in height, 5 pixel radius. The fill will be white. The border, we'll use our border color here. All right. And inside, we're gonna place the following text. Live demo. Yeah, we'll go ahead and use the Futura text. Heavy, we'll use 18 pixels for the size. Put it in the center, align it, and then align it with the button itself. And for this text style, we're gonna create a new one called BTN secondary light. And I'm saying light because we might have secondary buttons that are on a different kind of background. We'll just say light BG. Now that I look at it, I'm not really comfortable with this border color. So why don't we change it to the muted text color? That looks much better. So instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete this border color and I'm gonna rename this to muted text / border. All right, and now I'm gonna go back up here where we have a border and switch it to the correct color. Now notice this added an unnecessary border around this. So the way to get rid of that is to set the border to outside. So now we only have a border on the bottom. And then simply move this down a notch. And let's see, this still doesn't look good. So maybe just try and tamper with it just a little bit. So just use a lighter color for this border only. Yeah, so that works better. DB, DB, DB. This is the color that you want to use. And I'm actually going to save this color as light border. We might need it later on. All right, oh, what happened there? There we go. Good. Let's move on to the other button, but before that, let's actually create a new style here called BTN secondary on light BG. Actually, what we can do here, and that's going to be much better, we'll call this BTN BG, and we'll call this BTN secondary on light, and we'll create a symbol for it. And I'll show you how to use these in just a bit. Now, for the other button, let's actually duplicate this symbol. Select no symbol from that so we can make changes. No shared style there. And the fill will actually be our primary color. The text here, select no text style and make it white. And we'll say something like buy now, and let's put a price like 45. Now for the border of this, I'm gonna select the primary and just make it a bit darker. So maybe something like this, C6 2F38. And that will be, let's see, create new shared style. It's gonna be BTN primary. And this will be create new text style, BTN primary. All right, now let's see about the sizes of these buttons. Since they are big buttons, we're gonna add some big padding inside, 60 pixels. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna move it to the right, 60, and then we're gonna make this width plus 30, just like that. Or actually, I think it's better that we go for a fixed width button. So for example, let's go with 300 on this one, and we can just align the text inside. And for the secondary one, yeah, let's go with 300 as well, because the secondary basically refers on the styling and not so much on the actual size. Okay, so with that done, let's create a new symbol here called BTN primary. All right, let's position it at 30 pixels from its live demo counterpart. Let's group these, align them in the middle, and then break up the group. And then we're gonna put them at 60 pixels from the text. All right, let's do a little cleanup here. Let's see, this is HR, or actually it's thick HR, and we'll group everything here as hero. Now, the only thing that's left to do is to create a little arrow pointing down. Now, you can grab an arrow like this from any font set. you might have, or you can just create your own. I got mine from Font Awesome, and it's just a simple arrow. Fill, it's black, 20%, and it's 15 pixels in height. And I called it nav down. Now we're gonna place this right in the middle of the page, and we're gonna place it at 60 pixels from the content above, and at 60 from the content below it. So let's get this, let's group it as nav. Let's bring it into the hero group. And with that, we've finished the header and the hero area. And that's it for these two elements. The next step is to add a section that shows some of the other themes we're selling, as well as some customer testimonials. That's coming up next.